Warning: the following video has depictions of police brutality and police violence. Please watch with discretion.
Exit the vehicle now! Exit the vehicle! No!
Tell me why this officer starts punching the shit out of him! Look at the fucking smile on this guy, too. He's having the best day of his life! Alright. Hello, welcome to the video. You may have seen this video already, maybe not. It is going viral. What I initially thought was the clearest example of police brutality in my time. I've looked into the details of it a little bit more. This is the Jacksonville man getting punched in the face by police officers video. It is totally going viral. There is a lot of community uproar. I wanted to take the opportunity to break this video down piece by piece, step by step, action by action, and provide a little bit of the legal context about why this is so bad, whether or not it is even bad, and just give some context to what we should expect as a society looking to our law enforcement. What standards do we want to uphold them to? What actions do we want them to be able to take? Really, this is going to be an objective analysis. I'm not really taking a side too hard, but, I do have my bias. I definitely think that one person is more in the wrong than the other, and I'm sure that bias is going to come out through this video. I'm going to go ahead and just play the viral part of this clip first, and we're going to try to build some context around it, and then I'm going to talk about the law and do some sort of analysis over every single use of force in this video and kind of give my own opinion about whether or not I think it was excessive force, or what judges might think if this ends up becoming a civil lawsuit. This guy has already gotten a high-profile lawyer to represent him in a civil action against the police officer and the department. But, yeah. So first I'm going to go ahead and play the video. I want to make a disclaimer first. I am currently a law student. I am not a lawyer. Anything I say in this video is not supposed to be legal advice, but just talk a little bit about how I analyze this issue. Do not take anything I say in this video as legal advice. I am not authorized to practice law. I live in the state of California. I am not authorized to practice law in any state. This takes place in Florida. I'm going to talk about Florida law. I am not a lawyer. If you feel you have been wronged by law enforcement, I'm going to give you the best advice that an unqualified person would say to you if you're seeking legal counsel. I'm going to tell you to get a lawyer. Get in contact with a lawyer. Do not ask me legal questions. Do not take this as legal advice. Okay. This is not legal advice. Okay. Disclaimer over. Let's go ahead and just watch the video.
Yeah, when you step out of the car, I will.
Can you call your supervisor?
Huh?
Can you call your supervisor?
All right, go for it.
Exit the vehicle now! Exit the vehicle! Show me your hands.
Here. I'm here. What is your reason, sir?
Step out.
What is your reason?
Step out now.
All right.
No, don't.
Get on the ground.
Stop fighting!
Put your hands behind your back.
Put your hands behind your back! Hands behind your back!
All right. So what do you think? Say right now, like what in your head, where does your mind lead? I'll tell you what I thought when I first saw this video. I thought, "Oh my God, this is the most blatant police brutality I've ever seen." I'm going to go into the reasons into why I think that. But okay. So, in response, there has been interviews and press conferences surrounding it. This is the sheriff, the Jacksonville sheriff, responding to some questions regarding the incident.
What I don't understand is And I know you said that this was not ruled criminal, sucker punching the guy in the jaw.
Okay, so right now we have the reporter characterizing that punch. Let me go ahead and pull up the critical moment here. I think so. It's ambiguous as to which punch he's talking about. So first we have this punch, right? We have this, which could be called a sucker punch. That's what I'd call it. And then we have this second punch here. It's a little hard to see. This is an action shot. I took the screenshot, but you can see his knuckles are in his jaw, in his lip, punching him. I would also characterize this as a sucker punch. This is not like a fair fight. You know, this is multiple guys grabbing on a single individual and restraining him and then sucker punching him in the face. All right, so let's see what the sheriff has to say in response to that question, that characterization.
First of all, let me stop you. Not a sucker punch. I'm not excusing that administratively. I'm going to say that to you one more time. I'm not excusing that administratively. There are things that we definitely need to look at. But the context of this video should tell you everything you need to know.
I'll tell you what it tells me. That's a sucker punch. Okay, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. So he does clarify he's not excusing it administratively. He's not saying that the investigation is concluding this or that. It may be wrongful use of force, excessive force. What he's saying is, I don't think this is a sucker punch. Well, as a member of the public, I'm telling you I saw 2 punches, and 2 of those punches were sucker punches. But let's see what else he has to say.
Well, I take it. It looks like it's a sucker punch because he's looking straight, and you see this.
Right.
Okay, and then you see them pull him out, and then you see a couple of punches to the face. Now, again, I understand breaking the window, but he charged him with resisting arrest without violence. So I saw a lot of violence.
Okay, that is an important detail that we need to talk about. He is getting charged with the crime here, resisting arrest without violence. So that's important, right? So that means at some point, these officers were placing this individual under arrest. We're going to closely examine, as we continue our analysis, why was he placed under arrest? Let's continue watching.
I think the public saw a lot of violence against somebody that was not violent.
Well, first of all, Eric, don't try to talk the public into what they saw. They just saw the same videos you saw.
Okay. The public saw a lot of violence, to which the sheriff responds, don't talk the public into what they saw. I'm a member of the public. I saw a lot of violence. Do we need to show the screenshots? I mean, that's a lot of violence. That's a lot of violence. That's a lot of violence. And this is a lot of violence. I mean, come on. If you were going to a bar with some of your friends and they said, well, how was it? And, 2 of your friends or one of your friends got punched in the face twice, and you told someone else, the bar was cool, but there was a lot of violence. And your other friend said, hey, that's not a fair characterization. Don't tell people. That's absurd. This is a lot of violence. This is a violent response from the police, which can be okay if it's justified in reasonable force. Let's keep watching.
So what we're doing, what I'm saying is that it is what it is. This is the information that I want to share with the public in context without a short clip. It's very important to do that.
Okay, so he's taking a very political stance in this press conference. I think he's being smart about it. He's saying that we don't have all the details yet. I'm giving you the details that I have. He later goes on to say, I've provided the body cam footage, and we'll go into the body cam footage in a little bit as well, but he's overall taking a pretty political stance. This was another standout from the press conference.
The allegation that McNeil had reached down for the knife.
So there was an allegation. So all of this force has to be justified by some means, right? Which we'll go into in our legal analysis. But he's basically saying referencing that the officer put in his police report that this individual, I should probably get his name. Hold on, I'm gonna get his name. 1 sec. Okay, so pulled his name. His name is Mr. McNeil. McNeil is the individual. So they are alleging that McNeil had a knife on his seat and that he was reaching for it, and that is why the officer punched him in the face and yanked him out of the car, and they subsequently
That
arrested
was in
him.
the police report. But
Where'd you see, what police report did you see?
So he's saying, what police report is that? He's saying, in the arresting
in the
officer's
arrest report for McNeil, that was stated that the officer with the knife. The video,
Let's skip through a little bit.
I couldn't see any clear indication of that. I mean, do you see that when you're watching this?
No,
this
actually,
video?
I don't see where
Okay, so he's asking, do you see any indication that he's reaching for a knife?
his hands are. I can't assume, Jake.
We don't see where his hands are, and we can't assume. Once they made the decision to break the window, we can't assume that his hands weren't reaching for a knife. Well, to assume is to make an ass out of you and me, but I'll tell you one moment that stood out to me. If I'm thinking this suspect is violent, this suspect is going to reach for a knife, is this the suspect? Did you guys see me reach for that knife? You know what I mean? So maybe at some point prior to breaking the window, he reached for a knife, and that is what justified the punch. I don't know. But then does this justify the second punch that happens after? I mean, where's the knife? It's still in the car. It's still in the car. You can't just punch him because he's reaching for a knife and he's out the car. Okay, so those are some of the highlights from the press conference. I thought those were interesting. I want to briefly look at the body cam footage. The first few seconds doesn't have audio, but I want to point out a couple things. So first, we're going to look at the weather. And you're thinking, bro, why do we care about the weather? This is important. It looks cloudy. It looks like it might rain, which is important as to why they pulled him over and subsequently arrested him. We'll get to that in a second.
What did I do wrong?
Well, we're conducting a traffic stop right now. You need
Okay,
to
so he's
comply.
talking to the officer. He's saying, what did I do wrong? I am complying. He asserts later. Okay, so right now, this is another important detail. Right now, the suspect's car, McNeil's car, is sandwiched between two police vehicles. It looks to me like those lights are off, so the vehicle is off. It's off. Sandwiched between two police cars. The threat of him escaping is very low. We'll get back to that.
Can you unlock the door and step out? I will. Can you step out?
Okay, so they're asking him to step out.
You're being done. There's a traffic stop being conducted. You're required to comply.
There's a traffic stop being conducted. You are required to comply.
So, okay. So what did he ask for when he I guess talked to you? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so when he pulls him over, he opens his door because his window doesn't work, and he says, "What are you pulling me over for? What did I do wrong?"
Your headlights are off. Look at this.
That's the reason for the stop. Did you catch that? What's the reason for the stop? Your headlights are off.
I'm like,
Okay.
there's multiple people here.
Okay. That's still a legitimate reason to pull somebody.
Okay, another important detail. We see raindrops on the side of the car. Was it perhaps raining at some point?
There's no rain.
It doesn't matter. You're still required to have headlights on.
Okay, he said there's no rain. The officer said it doesn't matter. You're still required to have your headlights on.
Huh? Yeah. When you step out of the car, I will.
He said, "Can you call your supervisor?" Okay, so right now, the officer that later punches McNeil says, "I'm about to break a window."
All right. Go for it.
He says, "All right, go for it." And then that's when we have the other video. Okay? All right, so those are the facts. What does the law say? So, all right. So according to Florida law, we have Florida Statute 901-151. Under this statute, a law enforcement officer may temporarily detain an individual if the officer encounters the person under circumstances that will reasonably indicate the individual has committed, is committing, or about to commit a criminal defense. So this is pretty standard federal law from Terry v. Ohio. It's called a Terry frisk or something like that. But basically, there has to be some sort of reasonable suspicion that you have committed a crime, are committing a crime, or are about to commit a crime. An officer cannot just stop you and search you unless they have clear and articulable reasons as to why they suspect you of a criminal wrongdoing. So what about traffic stops in the state of Florida? In Florida, the legal standard for police to conduct traffic stops is governed by both constitutional principles, so Fourth Amendment stuff, the protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. It's governed by both constitutional principles and statutory law. So this would be like Florida statutes, Florida law. The following points outline the key standards. Under the Florida stop and frisk law enforcement officer may temporarily detain a person, including during a traffic stop, if the officer has a reasonable suspicion that the person has committed, is committing, or about to commit a crime. Very similar to the stop and frisk searching. This suspicion must be based on specific and articulable facts, interpreted in the light of the officer's knowledge and experience, and cannot be based on mere hunches or arbitrary decisions. A traffic stop is reasonable under the Fourth Amendment if police have probable cause to believe that a traffic violation has occurred. In this case, with McNeil, the traffic violation being alleged by the officers is that he did not have his headlights on. Okay. Is that a legitimate reason to stop him? Let's see. So, under Florida traffic law, headlights are generally not required to be kept on during daytime hours, unless specific conditions are met. So, according to the Florida statute, you must have your headlights on from sunset to sunrise at nighttime during twilight hours. Yeah, that's nighttime. And during rain, smoke, or fog. Okay, so here's the law again. During rain. It's not before rain. It's not after rain. It is during rain, which seems to imply by the spirit of the law that it is currently raining. Now, if we go back to the video, we see that there are water droplets on the side of McNeil's vehicle. That means that it has recently rained, but look at the officer's arm. Look at the officer's clothes. Look at the officers in this shot and on the cars and around. It's not currently raining. And you know what that means? You don't have to have your headlights on. I also want to just quickly point out that the police officers' vehicles don't have their headlights on. So they're not following the same traffic law that they're accusing McNeil of violating. And looky here, we have another police officer also with his headlights off. So we better punch him too. Okay, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. But point being is they're suspecting him of the traffic violation of not having his headlights on, but the conditions to that law are not met. During daytime hours, you don't have to have your headlights on. That's the law. So I also want to point out, I don't understand how we go from that traffic violation into trying to place him under arrest. It's not clear from the footage, either from the body cam footage or from McNeil's phone's video. It seems to be up in the air. But for some reason or another, they want to place McNeil under arrest, and he seems to be resisting. He's sitting in his vehicle. He's not opening the door in spite of the officer's instructions, so they proceed to use physical force. And I'm just looking around my document here. I have a section here for physical force. Should be right here. So when can officers use physical force? How much force is too much? When is it excessive force? And when should I call a lawyer? You know? So under Florida law, and this is pretty uniform, at least in California. I'm a little familiar with California law, not really other states, but this is approximately the standard. A lot of this stuff is on a national or federal level, but this is the Florida law at least. Under Florida law, the standard for police officers to use physical force is governed by both statutory provisions and case law, which emphasize reasonableness and necessity under the circumstances. A law enforcement officer is justified in using force when it is reasonably necessary to carry out their duties, such as making a lawful arrest, preventing escape, or defending themselves and others from bodily harm. So, you suspect someone of let's say, robbery. Someone just robbed a bank. We reasonably expect an officer to be able to grab the suspect. If the suspect physically resists, we reasonably would allow an officer to grab his arms, place him behind his back, say, spread him, and, throw the cuffs on. Okay, that's what this means, basically, is like if they are conducting their duties, they need some level of physical force in order to be able to, perform their job functions. But it's important that the force used must be proportionate to the situation and not excessive. And these are some statutes, Florida statutes, that talk about that, but that's pretty uniform across the board. So what does that mean? The reasonableness of the force used is assessed based on the circumstances as they appear to the officer at the time. This is an objective standard. Objective standard means it doesn't matter what the officer believed, but it matters what a reasonably prudent officer would have believed necessary under similar circumstances. So obviously the officer in our case is a bit of an egomaniac. He's got his adrenaline pumping, and in his head, he thinks he has to punch McNeil in the face. But if we were to interview 100 police officers and we ask them, do you think it's reasonable to punch McNeil in the face under these circumstances? We need the average to say yes in order for that use of force to be proportionate to the situation. If the average officer in that situation would not use that force, or they would consider that force excessive, that's excessive force. If an officer uses more force than is reasonably necessary, they may be held liable for the excess force used. Excessive force transforms the ordinarily protected use of force into a battery. A battery is the unlawful touching or harming of another, or physical harming of another individual. And officers are only protected when their actions are not clearly excessive. So, what does this mean? Basically, if the force used in this case is clearly excessive, then the officer who punched McNeil would be liable in the same way that I would be liable if I went up to McNeil's window and punched him in the face. The officer will be held liable, personally liable, for the battery of McNeil if it is clearly excessive. So let's look at each use of force in the McNeil case and decide, is this proportionate under the circumstances? Is this a reasonable use of force, or is it excessive? So let's remember this phrase. Proportionate to the situation and not excessive. Just let that phrase echo in your mind as we're looking through each use of force. So first, we have the breaking of the window. I think it might depend. I don't know the law around this, okay? This one might depend on the reasonableness of the stop. If the stop is unreasonable, if he stopped for basically no reason, then this is not a reasonable use of force. I think a lot of this case is going to revolve around whether or not the stop in the first place was a justified stop. Was it reasonable for the officers to stop McNeil in this situation because his headlights weren't on? Or were they just being, I'll let you use your imagination. Excessive? Were they abusing their power, etc.? Okay, I do quickly want to add one more thing as a side note. I don't think I was very clear in when I explained this in the analysis, but basically Florida law and federal law holds that courts will typically presume that any force used after an unlawful stop will be deemed unreasonable. So if the stop in the first place is deemed unreasonable, they stopped him for no reason, there was no conditions that would make the officers believe that he should have had his headlights on. If that is the case, then all of those key points that we went over, all those uses of force, those will all be deemed unnecessary or excessive uses of force because the stop is not justified in the first place. The exception would be if there was an intervening circumstance in which force would then become necessary. So, like, for example, during this unlawful stop, if McNeil had pulled out his knife or pulled out a gun, then there might have been a intervening cause for use of force. But based off of just the traffic stop itself and the following arrest because of the traffic stop, there was no intervening circumstance that could justify any use of force. So this case does hinge on whether or not that stop is lawful. In my opinion, that's my take. I think a lot of this case hinges on whether or not that stop is justified in the first place. So I think breaking the window, in most circumstances where an arrest is justified, where a traffic stop is justified, breaking a window is probably going to be a moderate use of force. It will be reasonable. It at least won't be clearly unreasonable. Okay, so we have another angle, or another frame rather, of the window being broken, glass shattering all over McNeil. If he's resisting arrest, keeping his doors locked, not talking to the officers, and the arrest is justified, then maybe this is a reasonable use of force. Then we have this moment here. We have this officer punching McNeil across the face. Okay, this is an unreasonable use of force, in my opinion, as a law student. Okay, this does not reasonably lead to a successful arrest. And if it does, it is excessive in its character. All this guy has to do to make the arrest at this point, as McNeil is sitting here, by the way, he's not trying to get away. He's not reaching for weapons. He's got his hands up at this point. He's just sitting in his car seat, just waiting for what he requested, which is a supervisor. He's talking to the officers. He's not trying to get away. A punch to the face does not advance this arrest at all. Okay, and then we have McNeil getting pulled out of his vehicle. If the arrest, and you have this officer here just licking his lips, getting ready to get another sucker punch in there. Look at him! Look at him! Oh my God! Anyways, yeah, so then you have him pulling McNeil out. So this is a use of force. The officers are touching him. You know, if an officer grabbed you like this for no reason, it would be unnecessary, unreasonable. Usually for traffic stops, this kind of shit is not needed unless McNeil was resisting a legitimate arrest. Then it might be deemed reasonable force. I think pulling someone out of their vehicle after we broke the window, after he's refusing to comply, we've placed him under arrest, we've charged him with resisting arrest without violence, we can now use physical force if he's physically resisting us. We have this next frame here. Look at the size of this guy's freaking bicep, by the way. For reference, this is what a normal man's bicep looks like, okay? I go to the gym. I work out. I'm pretty strong. I can curl 100 pounds. Look at this guy's bicep. That's the size of McNeil's, torso. The point I'm making here is we have 3 guys on McNeil, at least one of whom is strong as fuck, wrestling him to the ground. This situation, in my eyes, is now under control. I think this use of force could be necessary if McNeil is physically resisting. We see in the video, McNeil says, "Don't touch me, don't touch me." If the arrest is justified, if the traffic stop is justified, then this might be deemed a reasonable use of force. However, what comes next definitely is not. This is not a reasonable use of force. This, in my eyes, is clearly excessive. How do we go from this to punching McNeil in the face I shouldn't characterize this in case the public, I shouldn't speak for the public here. Sucker punches him in the mouth while he's being controlled by 3 muscular men. I do also want to quickly dub over here and talk about the nature of his injuries. So McNeil, he suffered a hole in his lip, a chipped tooth, and a concussion. The hole in his lip required 7 stitches. So this punch caused substantial bodily damage to McNeil and is a factor in determining as to whether or not this use of force was excessive or not. It clearly caused excessive injuries to McNeil. In addition to emotional damages, he had his physical damages, his damage to his property as well. So if this was an unjustified stop, that's pretty bad. They're going to be very liable for a lot of damages if this swings in favor of McNeil. Okay? He's wrestled to the ground, and this is the perspective from the body cam footage of him wrestled to the ground. Oh, I almost forgot this part. Hold on. All right. So we have this part. They pull him out of the vehicle. He says, "No, don't touch me." He's probably physically resisting. Wrestling to the ground is okay. Punching him in the face is not. Then we have him here. He's on the ground. He's restrained by 3 massive men. Cannot move. Oh, not that. Cannot move. Tell me why this officer starts punching the shit out of him. Look at this. Okay. So this is the last moment. This is the last use of force where I'm like, that's, in my eyes, this is clearly excessive. There is no reason for us to be punching McNeil's leg unless there is some sort of training in the Florida Sheriff's Department, or what county is this? Jacksonville Sheriff's Department. Unless there's some sort of training that says give him a dead leg so we can take him down easier. To me, this is a clearly excessive use of force. Is it excessive to a reasonably prudent officer? I think that's a different story. It depends. Is this normal training to give him dead legs? I'm not sure. So all of this is unreasonable use of force, however, if that traffic stop is not legitimate. If stopping McNeil, subsequently arresting him for not complying, for not having his headlights on, I mean, all of this force is excessive. Now, if the arrest is legitimate, then this is clearly excessive. The second sucker punch. The first sucker punch is clearly excessive. This is a good case of police brutality. We've looked a little bit at the law as to why that is, but, I just wanted to get that off my chest quickly after work. This has been bothering me all day. Look at the fucking smile on this guy, too. I love it, dude. Look at the smile on this geezer. All these geezer. He's having the best day of his life. Ridiculous. But in sum, my opinions are not that of a lawyer. This is not legal advice to say you should seek action for anything that's been done to you. If you think that maybe you should sue police over something that's happened to you, you should contact a lawyer. This is my take as a civilian. I don't know the law. I didn't do thorough research. I just went into the LexisNexis AI tool and pulled up some of these prompts, and those were some of the things that I was reading for you. And, that's about it. That's all I had to say. So let me know what you think. Do you think this was excessive force? Do you think police officers should be able to do this? Let me know. See ya.